This is Application Note 0301, Introduction to SHIPTide. I'm Terry West, and in this app note we're going to give you a brief introduction to the SHIPTide GUI development tool. There are many more app notes that you can watch and follow along that give you much more detail, but we'll give you a quick overview. If you've downloaded, installed, and run SHIPTide the first time, this is what you're going to see, something like pretty much a blank canvas. Let's create a new project. New project. SIM231. I happen to have a SIM231. You can see in the ribbon bar here that I've got a SIM231 attached to my PC right now. So I'm going to create a SIM231 project. You don't need to have a device attached, and you can build a project for a different device than you have attached. They're unrelated, except when you want to upload and try your GUI, of course. So let's choose a SIM231. Let's call this AN0301 as a project name. Let's choose that I'm going to target variant A01, which is the one I have. And I can choose portrait or landscape or any kind of rotation, but I'll use landscape. And there are different templates or starter projects available to you. So let's choose a basic starter project or template. Minimal really is very minimal. Basic gives you some ingredients to work with. The basic template, you can explore this for hours. There's lots of good stuff in here to teach you about techniques in using SHIP. So let's start with the basic template, say finish, and our IDE is populated with our basic template or the starter project. Let's look at these different areas. On the left, you'll see the layout area. This is where you lay out your different pages or screens within your GUI. If you look on the right, you'll see what you see is what you get area, which is you can zoom in and zoom out. It's pixel accurate to the screen that you're going to use. And your GUI is typically constructed in what we call pages or different screens. And in the middle here you see this column of pages, and there are 3 pages in this starter project. You can navigate amongst the pages here and see what they look like. You can use text or thumbnails, and you can make this smaller or bigger, and you may have many pages, hundreds of pages potentially in your GUI if it's very large. And your thumb wheel can scroll up and down so you can quickly navigate amongst your pages. As you click on these different pages, you'll see them in the WYSIWYG area. You'll also see over in the layout area that they get highlighted. So if I click on this page named phome, over here in the layout area you'll see the phome object in this tree structure get highlighted, and vice versa. If I select psplash over here, psplash page gets highlighted and this object, and you'll see the page named psplash appear. Psplash, phome, pinfo overlay, these are the names of the page objects. You could call them Fred, Gordon, and Mary if you wanted to. And in fact, on the layout area right here, you can right-click on an object and say rename, or press F2, and you could rename this to whatever you wanted from psplash. If you actually open up the tree structure, you'll see how these pages are constructed with other objects. So for instance, the psplash page, let me highlight this object here. That's the logo that, you see the little dashed line? If I click on it, and if I click this text frame, you'll see a text frame object over here, and this text or label type object right here. These are the objects on your screen, on your page, and each page will be constructed of different things. This is the home page, and it's composed of a header, which is a complex object which has more objects inside it. So if I open it up, you'll see a logo area over on the left in the header, a status area over on the right in the header, and a text frame in the middle, all encapsulated inside this header object, which is inside this page object. So you can encapsulate the header, the footer, or the content area in the middle. This is where you put all your code, all your actions, all your events, all your layout information of how you arrange and navigate your screens. You'll use resources like fonts, images, text that's translatable, and fonts, images, text, even communications capabilities from the project resources area. So in this particular instance, you see there's an I button here, or it looks like a button. It's certainly an image. And if I click on it, it shows you where in the layout area this is put. And the logo area has this angle I info, this triangle. It means that there's an attached image. That image is a resource, and if you look over in the resource area, there's the resource right there, the I info resource. All of these objects in the resources and layout area have properties, lots of properties. very customizable. If you've used Dreamweaver or Visual Basic, Visual Studio, you'll be familiar with property sheets. Whatever you have selected over here will be the property sheet that's shown. If things aren't working the way you expect, double check that you're actually editing the object you thought you were editing. So if I click on the INFO resource, you'll find that its type is image. It's an image resource. It's an image object. It has a name called INFO that I've given it, or the template has. And it has a pointer to the actual source file, which is and you can drag and drop and make these columns bigger, and you can see it's a PNG file, and it's 48 by 48 pixels. If I go over on this phome object over here, where I click around on my pages, and I click on phome here, you'll see that the property sheet shows the properties for the phome page object, including things like, if I slide down, the background color, which in this case is opaque gray, and if I want to change it, I can change it to blue, and you'll notice that I'm changing the property of the object, and I'm seeing its change right away. So we see the WYSIWYG area, the page navigation, property sheets, which show the properties of whatever object is selected, resources, which are reusable objects, constant reusable objects, and the layout area that lays out your screens and different pages and puts all the code and everything all in that area. When I'm done and I want to actually export this GUI to my board, which is connected, as I said, you do a project export GUI. I can save my project. I can say project export cargo, and it will actually go and build this cargo file, which is what we call the bundle of all the images, fonts, resources, layout, everything in one file. And because I'm connected to a board, it will ask me if I want to upload this file, this cargo file, directly to the board right now. And I can say yes. And because I'm connected via USB, it's now uploading my project to the board. And when it's done, the board will reboot and show me my new GUI. I can actually upgrade. So it's done, it's actually rebooting, and you'll see the SIM231 go away for a brief moment while it reboots, and then it'll come back. And it's actually running the GUI now. If I want, I can manually upload any cargo that I want using the upload project, and I can pick a manual upload of any project I want, or that I've precompiled and pre-built. I can even update the firmware on my board. So if I say Tools, Firmware Updater, it will pull the serial number from my board, the model number, the version, everything. It'll tell me what is installed on my board. If I'm connected to the web, it will give me a list of all the different firmware bundles that are available on the web, including old versions and experimental versions. And I can choose a new firmware bundle, download and program it all in one button. And I've got 205 installed, so I'm not going to do it right now, but you see firmware bundle 205. I could say program. It would download all the elements, and you can see all the release notes of the various bundles, and download it and upgrade my unit automatically to that new firmware bundle. So I've shown you all the ingredients of the SHIPTide, the main ingredients of the SHIPTide GUI development tool: the WYSIWYG area, pages, property sheets, resource and layout objects, project building and exporting and updating, as well as SIM of the firmware updating for the hardware device.